Hi everyone, I'm Patrick Arlt, and I'll be joined by Allison Davis, and we are going to talk about the Vector Tile Style Editor, which is a now a few years old application that's allows you to design custom styles for basemaps and vector tile layers in ArcGIS. But I want to start with just refreshing on what vector tiles are and why you would want to use them. Vector tiles are a highly compressed geographic data format, and they're indexed to a tile scheme if you're in ArcGIS vector tiles, and they're really, really useful for transferring and rendering lots of features, not just maybe like a feature layer level of features, but thousands and thousands and thousands of features, similar to how you would bake raster tiles, except for there's a separation of the data, which lives in the tiles, and the style, which is what we're going to be editing today, because the style is interpreted on the client. So the styling specification is based on the styling specification from Mapbox. And normally each base map style that's provided by Esri has about 150 to 300 different layers to create each of our styles. And the data is determined with a source layer. So this may point to something like roads minor, and then that might have an additional filter on it. And there are several types of layers, and it's really difficult to build these styles by hand, which is why we wrote the vector tile style editor. So this is a visual tool, and the goal is to kind of give a complete editing experience for vector tiles that also has some extra fun features for Esri base maps. So new this year, we've added support for some of the new Esri styles, including Community, Charted Territory, and National Geographic. We also added support for the new OpenStreetMap services. We've allowed you to delete icons and patterns from styles that you're not using, in addition to adding them. And the biggest feature is it's now available in ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise through the map viewer. So those are some of the new things since last year. And I just want to take a quick spin through some of the styles that we created as a team while we were building and testing, so that you can kind of get an idea of what you can do with the editor. So these are some of the styles that we've made. You can see there, it's pretty easy to create these very vibrant styles. So, and it's pretty easy also to create all levels and have readable labels and things like that. And as you can kind of scroll through, you can get a feel for just how wide a variety you can get with this. So some of the tools are thematic based. Some of the tools let you make very minute adjustments. So this monochromatic blue map is one of my favorites. It looks great, and it'd be good for doing something like styling data. You can do lots of different little effects and things like that. Even doing kind of monochromatic newsprint paper style is pretty easy. So not always readable, but you can go through and fine tune all of that. So those are some of the styles.
Okay, so I'm going to step you through getting started with the editor, and also taking you on a tour of some of the tools you can use when you're starting to customize your own base map styles. So to start us off, we're just going to launch the editor from the developer's website, so from developers.arcgis.com. And here from the landing page, we're going to open this gallery, and this is a great way to start out if you don't have any existing base map styles or any custom tile layers that you'd like to work with. This takes you to a gallery of all of the Esri base maps that you can start out working with, or there are some OpenStreetMap styles as well. And I'm just going to select World Topographic Map. And now we are inside the editor. So you have a main map view here, as you can see, and then down below we have these mini maps, which are super handy if you're working with a style and you want to see multiple zoom levels at a time, or for example, if you want to zoom into a really urban area, such as Sydney versus a more rural area. Really handy for looking at different points on your style at once. And you can toggle these on and off in the lower right-hand corner if you like. You can also toggle hill shader imagery layers like so. So now, if we look here, we can see that we have our hillshade toggled. And then here on the left-hand side toolbar, we have a Save As option. And so I'm already logged into my ArcGIS for Developers account. So if I hit Save As, and I can give my style a title and give it any tags that I would like. This auto-populates with the tags already on the Esri basemap item, and I can adjust my sharing settings. And when I'm ready, I can actually save this style, and this means that it will save as an item in my ArcGIS Online account. So if I'm in the developer's website or on arcgis.com, I can see this as an item in my account and either go back to editing it, or I can also drop it in as an item to be consumed by an application I'm building. So editing in ArcGIS Online, the experience is a little bit different. So I need to first go to an item that I've already saved in my account. So here we have a copy of World Navigation Map that I made earlier. And I'm going to open this in the map view. So this is just ArcGIS Online. And then once this loads, I'm going to click Change Style. And this launches the vector tile style editor inside ArcGIS Online. You can do the same thing in ArcGIS Enterprise as well. So now I'm inside my editor, and pretty similar tools. As you can see, all of the tools on the left are still present. The main difference is once I'm done, I can either save and close my edits here, or if I just want to wipe everything out, I can hit cancel or toggle here to just totally close everything. Don't save anything and go back to the map viewer. So now I'm going to show you some of the different tools that we saw on that left-hand toolbar. And the first is Quick Editor. So if we go back to our style here in Online. So Quick Editor really allows you to edit large categories in bulk. So it divides up all of the layers, and depending on the complexity of the style and the number of layers, we're talking about anywhere from 500 to over 1,000 different rules for the style. And it divides these layers into 6 big groups: land, water, roads, boundaries, and buildings. And then we can actually change the colors in bulk. And we can either do these individually here and crack open a color palette like so. We hit done. Or we can also just randomize the whole thing. This is kind of a fun thing to play with. Ooh, that's very monochromatic, but it's a fun thing to play with, especially if you're looking for ideas on how to get started with a custom style and really start from scratch. Now here we can also select different color schemes. This is a custom theme, so there's not really any relation between these main colors. But if we toggle this to, say, monochrome, then we can work with a style with one central theming color, and then Quick Editor will adjust the colors of the other groups based on that main theming color. So looking very monochromatic there. You can do the same thing with analogous, triadic, complementary, or compound. Let's try complementary. Yeah. And right now, as you can see, we have recolor icons and patterns toggled to on. That means that any sprites that you have in your style, so road shields, icons, those are getting recolored as well by the Quick Editor. We can toggle that on or on, off or on, excuse me. And then also we can either use our label colors selected by Quick Editor for us, or we can pull these out and do these ourselves. And we can here, you see, we have the option to style both the text and the halo color. We can also do bulk editing of fonts here very easily. So for example, we can set this like so, or we can get really out there and go with Amatic. And this edits all of the fonts in the style at once. We can use these smaller and larger tools to bump up our layer label sizes. And as you can see, I'm clicking a couple of times before you really see changes reflected on the map. And this is deliberate so that when you're editing, especially when you're editing big bulk groups of layers like this, you really have maximum control over the changes you're making. And then same with road width, I can, and this is editing all of our road layers at once, taking that width, and we can bump it wider. or take it narrower. And same thing, I'm clicking really multiple times before we see changes happen in our viewer. So I'm going to actually reset these changes that we've made. And so what's going on under the hood? I'm just going to take a minute to talk about kind of the order of operations when Quick Editor is working. So we have our 6 color groups that I talked about earlier, and we run through the giant list of styling rules. Typically, each rule applies to one layer only. So for example, parks layer. Then the individual layer colors within each of the 6 groups are adjusted so that layer colors don't collide too much with each other in the style. So this can mean taking down some opacity in some places, increasing our saturation in others. And then the next step is label colors are adjusted to meet certain contrast thresholds. So there's you can set contrast from low to maximum, and then the Quick Editor will take those specifications and set the contrast between the text color and the outline color of the label. And then shadows and road casings are colored next for maximum contrast, or for the contrast specified rather. And then the last step in the quick editing process is that the icons and patterns are tinted to match the set color groups. So that's kind of the order of things as we make any changes to our style inside of Quick Editor. So the next set of tools we're going to talk about is the group editor. And this allows us to bulk edit subcategories of layers. Under the hood, it's following the same rules and logic as the quick editor tools we just talked about. And this is great for big subcategories of layers, such as major or minor road groups. And it allows us to still edit a large number of layers really quickly, but with a little bit more control and specificity than you'd get with the quick editor groups. So back in the editor, we're going to move from Quick Editor to our Layer Editor. We're going to zoom in on Portland, Oregon. Hide our mini maps here. Great. Zoom in just a hair more. Awesome. So if we click on our road group, you can see we've got a really large number of layers here, 129. So these are all of the layers that the Quick Editor is working with under the hood when it goes through its styling rules and makes changes. And if we expand that, there's quite a few. So all of these, you can hover and see the layer type. We've got all the different line layers for the roads, and then we also have all the different label text as well. So that's pretty unwieldy. So if we click on this minor in the road group, then we winnow that down to 10 immediately. So that's a lot more manageable. So we see the 10, we see the line layers, and we see some label text as well. And we can hover over these and see names and the layer type. And we can toggle them on or off. So we can see that changes taking place on the map as we do that. And if we go down here, we can do some bulk color editing. And the nice thing about this color picker that you'll see all over the editor is that here we've got a list of all of the colors being used currently in our style. And then here we have tints and shades that are being set based on the current color that the picker is set to. So we'll go ahead and darken these roads a little bit. That might be a bit too much. And as you can see, as we click and make changes, these are actually getting updated immediately on our map. If we don't like anything, we can always hit undo. But let's go for back for now and do kind of a medium gray. There. And we can also, same as in the quick editor, we have access to our font picker. We can change our label size. I'm going to make these roads just a hair narrower. Great. And just as in the quick editor, you'll see it takes a couple of clicks before changes really become visible, especially if you're at a larger zoom level. And that's just for maximum control. We're making tiny changes, but you can make a lot pretty quickly. So that's the group editor. Next, the layer editor, as you might expect, allows you to edit a single layer at a time in your style. And you can edit any property of any layer. So it's a very verbose but more detailed style of editing. We can use stops for setting different styles across zoom levels. So changing a fill color, for example, so that at level 2, it's maybe more of a lighter shade. And then as we zero in, the saturation or the opacity of the color ramps up in intensity. We can also show and hide individual layers, customize zoom levels for visibility. So for example, changing when a layer first comes in or out of view as we zoom in or out. And this is, again, the most specific and high level of control that you can get when working with the editor. So let's take a look. I'm just going to reset the changes I made from my road group. And then here, so this is a fill layer, Parker Farming. We're looking at Forest Park here in Portland. And same as in the group editor, we can toggle that visible or not. We can change our fill color. And what I want to look at here are the stops. So we can add a stop. And what we can do here, so if we say 19, we're going to darken this green up a little bit. And we don't see a change because we're still at 13. So let's zoom in a bit. As we zoom, there's our darker green. So kind of a simple example, but you get the idea. You can go as detailed as you like with these zoom levels. We can change outline color. We can work with a pattern instead of a fill color. We can dial back the opacity. And these changes are all getting represented as we change our map. So then the sprite editor allows us to work with icon and pattern recoloring. So each base map, whether it's an Esri base map, OpenStreetMap, comes with existing icons and patterns. And this tool allows you to recolor those icons and patterns to match whatever custom color schemes you're working with. You can also upload new sprites, and you can delete sprites as well. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go ahead and reset again. And so here we'll open up our sprite or icon and pattern editor. And this is a list of all of the icons currently in our style. So for example, we can edit individual sprites here. We can also tint these, as we saw earlier, in bulk in the quick editor. But if you just wanted to work with an individual sprite, you could do that here. And let's add a new fill pattern for our park layer that we've been working with. So I'm just going to choose this interesting fill pattern that I have here. We need to give it a name. And you see that it uploads a standard resolution and then a high resolution version of that sprite. And that'll just take a minute to upload. And then once we have our sprite uploaded, we can click on it, and we can even add a custom tint to it. So I want to add just a slight green, and this applies on top of the existing sprite. And this is just a preview of that tint. And what we're going to do actually is hit apply so that our sprite is actually changed. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hop back to our forest park layer. Zoom out a bit just so we can see. And here, where it says pattern, we're going to actually add our park fill. Excellent. And there you have it. Now we could change this. So for example, if we wanted to work with stops here, same thing, you can set value by zoom level. And so at certain zoom levels, for example, you could have a solid fill color, and others you can use a pattern. It's really up to you. You can get pretty fine-grained with these settings. So let's try a different icon. This one we're going to use with some label text. So we'll go back and add a new file. You can also drag and drop into this file picker if you like. And I'm going to upload that. Great. And now we're going to click on this label here, and we're going to add our new icon. So we just select that there. Done. But this isn't ideal because our icon appears smack in the middle of our label text. So not the best user experience, but fortunately we can fix that. And as you can see, the text label tools are really fine-grained. We can edit our font, we can play with our halo colors on the labels, but we're going to scroll down here and we're going to go to icon translate, and we're just going to change this offset a little bit. We'll start with, say, how about 25? That's better, and we're on the right track, but let's say 35. Closer, closer, closer. Great. So I'm pretty happy with that for right now. And so as you can see, there are a lot of different things we can do in order to really bump up. Whoops. We're going to anchor that to the center here of our label area. And so we can really get fine-grained with these labels at the individual layer level and really dial in how we customize them. Now, the last set of tools I want to show you is the color editor. So going back, we'll just reset style for right now and go to edit by color. Now, the color editor is great because it allows us to work with colors in bulk. So these are all of the swatches that are appearing in our style. And say that we've done something, I'm just going to show you one use case that I often like to use this for. Say that we have made a change over the course of our editing that is not deliberate. We were experimenting and we just changed a fill color to something really kind of off base with the rest of our style. So we've got this bright purple color, and then that's pretty obvious, of course, but if we zoom out, at some point, that zoom level means that we can no longer see that layer, and that change isn't visible anymore, but we really don't want to keep that in our style. So a great way that you can find colors that aren't lining up with your palette is that you can go to the color editor, and we actually see in our swatches this purple that really looks like it doesn't belong. So if we click on it, and here's our education layer, now we can replace all instances of this color with something a little more to our liking. So let's say that I go back here and I'm going to change things to this green. We'll hit done and apply. And the nice thing too is that now that we've set the education layer to this green, we see any other layers in our style that are set to the same color. So that's a really nice way to audit the color usage in your style and make sure that things are really lining up with the palette or the branding that you're working with. Alrighty, so next I'm going to hand things back over to Patrick, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about best practices and even more tips and tricks for working with the vector tile style editor and creating custom styles. Back to you, Patrick.
So what I want to do now is I want to show the complete experience of kind of creating a style. So I'm going to start by going into the map viewer and putting on the OpenStreetMap vector base map. And when you're signed in to ArcGIS Online and you have a vector base map or any vector tile layer, this change style button will appear when you hover over it, just like on a feature layer. And if you click that, it'll actually launch the vector tile style editor, and you can actually start editing that base map directly from the map viewer. So you can see the OSM base map is really, really complicated. There's just tons and tons of data. But I've always wondered if if it would be possible to have kind of a more monochromatic or a more colorful or thematic experience on top of it. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes and try to actually create a really thematic base map on top of the OSM base map. So I might go for maybe this kind of pinky purple color. And one of the things that Quick Editor will try to do is automatically sort colors into kind of the proper buckets. So the greenest color usually will always end up in nature. The bluest color that's remaining will end up as water, and it'll kind of try to sort them out a little bit. I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter than this. That looks good. So now, one of the things I'm going to make this nature a little bit different is we also give you lots of suggestions. So we try to come up with things that might complement. So we'll kind of auto-generate these color palettes depending on what your current colors are. So I'm going to actually fine-tune this just a little. So we're going to make water quite a bit bluer. We made nature a little bit greener. I think I can live with that. And one of the first things I like to do when I'm working on a base map based on OSM is actually set the background of the map to the same color as land. And that has the effect of kind of syncing that color up across everything. So we'll restyle that, and now you can kind of tell the difference between land and that a little bit more. And I'm actually going to make that even lighter. We'll go for maybe more of like a muted canvas effect. So now we have these kind of big forests, and if I zoom in right here, that looks pretty good at zoom 7, but all the way zoomed out at zoom 4, it seems like some of those forest areas are kind of overwhelming the map a little. So I'm going to actually take those, and I'm going to take those down to maybe that 7 level. And I'm going to do that for all of these: land cover heath, land cover grassland, and land cover fill. And I can also click and discover things, so we'll do the same for land cover forest. And there's this land cover farmland that's also visible at 4. And now we'll get a little bit more detail as we zoom in. And we can start to see those. Now, one of the other features that a lot of editors will use is we'll use the ability to set things by zoom level. So even though this is visible at zoom 7, I think I'm actually going to go to zoom 6. And at zoom 6, I want this to maybe be 50%. And then as I zoom in, those will start to come up a little bit more. So we're kind of just tweaking based on the zoom level how prominent these features are going to be. And then there's also this land cover military. I think I'm just going to hide these entirely. You can actually disable an entire category by clicking on the category name and then clicking the visible tab. So we're going to hide those. And I think that's looking a little better now. I'm going to take this farmland. I'm going to apply the same thing to it. We'll start it at zoom 6, and we'll go from 50% opacity at zoom 6 up to 100% opacity there. And I can also start to see some of these, this land cover residential fill. This I might just knock this back to 50% across the whole map. Farmland fill, I've set that up already. Land cover grassland probably needs the same treatment with opacity, so I've set that by zoom level. We'll go 6. 50, and let's go with scrub while we're in here. So you can kind of see this having the effect of toning down some of those values. I think that's looking a lot better. So if I look on this Washington, though, this is looking really busy. So let's see if we can fix how busy that looks. Now, a lot of this is land cover, and a lot of this is also roads. And the way that roads are organized in the OSM map is you have these kind of different levels. So motorway is a good one. we can take motorway and let's actually start with all roads. And let's make those roads just a little bit lighter. So they might blend into the land just a little bit more. Let's actually also not make them blue so they don't look like rivers. That, I think, looks much, much better. So in addition, we're at zoom 10 right now. I don't think this value for residential fills is really working. So let's try doing it by zoom level now and seeing if that gets us anywhere. I think that's helping a little. It still seems a little too prominent. That seems much better, going with 25, 50, and that kind of darker color. So now there's a lot of these. I wonder if we maybe just get the average of that. So we'll go in, we'll edit all of the residential fills to that color. And I think that's helping quite a bit. So now what I want to do is I want to go in and let's work on some of the specific levels of roads. And this is one of the things I really like to do. So in the OpenStreetMap vector base map, the motorways are the highest level of road. So we can highlight the motorways in different ways. I like to usually make them a little bit darker. So let's make them just a little bit different. So now we can see those start to pop out a little bit. And usually it works best if you make primary and motorway the same. And then those will start to pop out just a little bit more. Now, when we zoom in, we start getting lots and lots of extra detail in the map. And a lot of it is the buildings and the POIs and these kind of trails. So I think what I'm going to do is I might actually just turn off all of the paths. And that's going to really kind of clean that up. And then there's also a lot of minor service roads. Since we're making more of a general purpose base map, I feel okay hiding all of the service roads as well. And then there's some other, so these access type roads, I'm also going to hide. And then the other thing you can do is the POIs are really detailed in the map. And there's this entire shop category that you can turn things on and off. I'm actually going to turn off a lot of the POIs, I think. So I'm going to actually turn off the shop POIs. And there's also a lot of other things in the land use category that you can go through and actually edit. So this hopefully gives you an idea of just how much power there is. And I only have 15 minutes to kind of work through some edits on the OSM map, but with a lot of work, you can really get some impressive results. And you can even do things like, if I save and close this, we'll go back to the map viewer. You can even do things like mirror some of the Esri styles, but in the open base map. And there are things that you can do. Let's see. If I open the Living Atlas, you can actually get versions of the OpenStreetMap that are kind of pre-configured to look like Esri styles. So for example, this is the same OSM map, but the base style is designed to look like the Esri street base map. So if this is a little bit more along the lines of what you're doing, you can actually start with this, and it has a lot of those features already kind of pre-configured and edited for you, so it makes editing quite a bit easier because we've already kind of taken some of the and done some of that kind of thinking for you in terms of what should and shouldn't be highlighted. So if I actually just kind of take this and randomize it a few times, you can see this tends to produce quite a bit better results. This one actually looks quite good. I should have started with this one, but this produces some pretty good results in terms of getting a quick edit and prototyping and thinking about new ideas. So let's actually go with this now, and we can take a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the land. So I'm going to set the background. So yeah, this looks good. So I'm going to stop it here and go on and talk a little bit about the roadmap for Vector Tile Style Editor. So on the roadmap, we have a few features that we're excited about bringing out in the coming months and probably the next year. One of them is going to be layer management and reordering. And you saw a few times in the OSM style, particularly when editing roads, the ordering of features really matters. And we want to let you do things like manage the order in which roads stack on top of each other and allow you to reorder layers, allow you to duplicate layers. A lot of effects in the Esri basemaps are created by actually stacking lots of copies of layers with different styles on top of each other. So things like building outlines and building footprints might have like a faux 3D effect. We want to let you make things like that by duplicating that building fill layer over and over again. We're also working on custom font uploads, and in the OSM map, you're limited to the fonts that are published with the service, and in that case, that only really gives you access to a couple basic fonts. So we want to let you be able to upload your own fonts. And then finally, we're going to let you edit the raw JSON of the style, either on a per layer basis or edit the entire style. So if you want to get access to properties that we don't actually have interactive editing for, you can actually just type in the values that you want. So we have a couple ways to get started. The easiest is actually to start with the tutorials that we've written for this on the developer site. So we have two. One is style a vector basemap, and the other is display a styled basemap in your app. You can also just use them in the map viewer like I was just showing, and that will allow you to do things like use them in your web maps and share them with your colleagues who might not be developers. And we're still accepting feedback on GeoNet, so we have a space in GeoNet, and that will be somewhere where you can give us feedback on the editor, and we can help you work through any problems. So thank you for watching, and the slides for this are available at this link.